Hello and welcome to part one of the Easter edition of Championship Fixtures from the On Sport Podcast. I'm Craig Sargent. With me, as always, is Daniel Cody and Charlie Betts. Let's have a quick recap of the Matchday 38. That was before the international break. Each one of us all had a perfect score. Myself got Reading versus QPR. Charlie's was 1-0 to Luton against Preston. And Daniel Cody's was 1-0 to Cardiff against Swansea in the derby. But Daniel Cody's points wasn't very good. He only got one more. Charlie got three more. And I got five more. So 8, 6, and 4 respectively. So the table looks like this. I'm on 284 with 49 perfect scores. Daniel Cody's on 263 with 43 perfect scores. And Charlie Betts is on 238 with 34 perfect scores. So let's start off with the Good Friday edition. It is Bournemouth versus Middlesbrough. Charlie, Bournemouth at that week off. Obviously playing in the FA Cup. Do you think that was a good thing for them or bad?
I don't know. I mean, I think the international break, as we saw early, right back at the beginning of the season, make or break for some teams. Reading flopped, Bristol City flopped, but then, for example, Luton had a great show after the international break back then. So, do you know what I mean? It is such a pivotal time of the season to have it. I mean, the FA Cup would have taken a lot out of them, obviously, but they've had 2 weeks off the back of that. The problem is both of these teams are massively inconsistent. Just when you think by returning, they then get beaten 1-0 by Millwall, who Millwall have been a bit ropey recently as themselves. So, I really don't know where to go with this one. I'm sort of backing on. I'm going to go for Bournemouth purely on them being more consistent of the inconsistencies. It could be anything. I'm plucking this one out of the air, really. I know I shouldn't do that at the beginning, but you just don't know, especially with Borough at the minute, all over the shop. So 2-1 Bournemouth.
Cody.
Yeah, as Charlie says, it's a pretty tough one to predict this because Bournemouth, I watched that Southampton game. They weren't great. There were poor defensive errors in there. But against Swansea the midweek before, they looked fantastic. They're 3 points off the playoffs. They're right in contention for it. But we don't really know what to expect over a sustained period with Jonathan Woodgate. Having said that, if Middlesbrough win their game, they're only 3 points behind Bournemouth. They could be level on points with them and right back in the playoff hunt. So I'm going to go for a Neil Warnock special. I know I did that at Millwall and then it went the opposite way. But I'm going to go for 2-1 to Middlesbrough because it's the last chance they've got to get in the playoff contention.
Yeah, it's starting to get tight now. Obviously, we've got, 6, 7, 8 games to go. Everyone's obviously bound to drop points somewhere, and it can literally go either way. We saw that last season, how it all just went pear-shaped for certain teams. At the end of the season, and it's these two teams, obviously, it's crucial. 7th versus 9th. Obviously, Bournemouth got the game in hand over the Readings and the Barnsley, so they can claw back the points. But I don't see them doing that. I don't see Middlesbrough sparking anything either. Despite Middlesbrough's okay form, 3 wins out of 5. I'm going to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline of 1-1. Up next, Ashton Gate, it is Bristol City versus Stoke City. Cody, Bristol City, different manager, same old, same old.
Yeah, I mean, the only difference, I guess, to an extent, is that all of the good results under Nigel Pearson have been on the road. They've lost every home game since he's taken charge, I believe. So it's a bit of a problem area for Bristol City. When teams counter-attack them, they look a little bit fragile. Having said that, Stoke away from home have generally drawn a lot of games this season. You've got the team who have drawn the least games in the league against the team who have drawn the second most. So everything wanted to go for a draw till I saw that Bristol City stat. But they're going to get the first point at home under Pearson. It is going to be a classic Michael O'Neill away performance. It's going to be goalless. It's going to be 0-0.
Charlie?
The thing is, the problem is you've got Stoke, who I agree with Dan, I'll draw specialists, but they've only got 1 point in the last 6 away from home. As you say, Bristol City have lost every game at home in the last 6 matches. So it can either be 4-3 or 1-0. And just when you write off Stoke, Michael O'Neill pulls out a Michael O'Neill special against Derby last time out. So I'm going for another one of those. He's never done 2 on the bounce until now. 1-0 Stoke.
I'm going to go with the same scoreline that I went first game. I think 1-1 will probably be a fair result. Bristol City, they need to get over that losing streak at home. Stoke, on the other hand, they picked up a win last game. Happy days for them. Obviously, they're sitting mid-table. I don't see anything special for them for the rest of the season. They're comfortable. They can be comfortable. Actually, both these teams can be comfortable for the rest of this season. I'm going to go with the Championship favourite scoreline again, 1-1. Up next, Cardiff City Stadium, it is Cardiff City versus Nottingham Forest. Cody, 1-0 win for Cardiff away from home in the derby. How crucial do you think that would be for them to in that final round of games?
Yeah, I think Mick McCarthy's going to give them a great chance of getting in the playoff hunt. And that result was so key to it because without it, they're below Middlesbrough and it starts to look like a big gap. And they're coming up against a side at the perfect time. Forest have been in woeful form again, just as we thought they were pulling away. Scored 3 goals in the last 6 games, all of them in 1-1 draws. Two of those are away from home, though, and away to Brentford. It's not a bad result in the last game. If Forest don't get something, they could well be in relegation trouble if Rotherham win that game at the weekend and their midweek one. But I'm going to bank on that happening. Cardiff are going to win it for me. I think it'll be tight because Forest don't concede many, but 1-0 to Cardiff City.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go for a Cardiff win as well. Obviously, as you both said, that win against Swansea, crucial. They obviously got that early goal, backs against the wall near the end, bodies on the line. It was a perfect 1-0 away performance, especially in the derby. I was quite impressed with that. Forest, God, I'm really surprised how poor Chris Hughton has been, to be honest. It's not his squad. I think if he has the summer, he might have a major clear out and obviously try and sell some players on to clear some depth that Nottingham Forest seem to have, that the price of football was kindly pointed out recently. I'm going to Cardiff to win 2-0. Charlie?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I was edging towards where you two are going, but there's a couple of results. As Dan mentioned, the Brentford one, obviously, in terms of Nottingham Forest, when they maybe need to dig in and not necessarily come out and try and play for a draw, they probably are better at that. I think it's when there's a bit more pressure and they're playing maybe a team such as below them that they have to come out a bit more, and that's when the wheels have come off a little bit. And then I just look at Cardiff, and albeit they've been in great form, but they did draw with Stoke 0-0, another team who sort of dug in, put a bit of a 11 men behind the ball sort of approach. The problem is Forest, I don't know where the goals are coming from. We've spoken about this week after week. Another year with the striking talent they have, they should be, much higher than they are, but they've just been woeful in front of goal. So I'm going to be bold because you two have gone for a win. I'm going to go for a draw. 1-1, Championship's favourite scoreline, because I think just Nottingham Forest might just suit them a little bit. They don't need to come out, and they might just sneak one. So 1-1.
Up next at Pride Park is Derby County versus Luton Town. Charlie, going to go to you first instead of Daniel Cuddy on Luton for once. Luton, 50 points, comfortable. Derby, squeaky bum time.
Yeah, and I've said this before. I don't know. The problem is I don't know if that gives you an edge or it gives you a bit of a hindrance, because actually, as you said, mentioned with Luton being safe, I'm not questioning anyone's professional, attitude, but less to play for a little bit. Does that affect the way you play? I don't know. But you do know that when you've been down at the bottom of the table, you've got to throw your body on the line. You do maybe run that extra yard. You do maybe put a little bit more into that challenge. I don't know. So on that basis, I mean, the two with Derby recently, that's thrown the whole thing out. Otherwise, I'd have gone a resounding Luton win, because Derby were massively on the slide. But then just when you think they're dead and buried, they sort of pluck out a result. So I think I have to back Nathan Jones, though. I think despite Derby's last home game being a 2-2 draw at Brentford, I think Nathan Jones special coming up. But Luton don't score many away from home. They don't score many at all at the minute, to be brutally honest. So another special, 1-0.
Ready?
Yeah, I mean, Charlie's basically hit the nail on the head. I don't want to be glum with entertainment for this weekend, but bar the Brentford game, Derby haven't scored in their last 6. Luton aren't the perennial goal scorers, though it is possibly a good sign that James Collins, to an extent, got the shot for the goal at Preston and scored in the international break for Ireland in the first game, which is going to make a difference to his confidence. But Luton at 50 points, like Charlie says, it can go either way. Derby are in must-win territory because, realistically, if results go against them, they could mathematically end up in the relegation zone by the end of next week. It's rather unlikely, but it's possible. Oh, I don't know. 1-1.
I'm torn this one. I actually do think Luton. I've said this for weeks. Luton are bound to happen, and Luton are going to batter a team. Also, yeah, you got the 3-0 Preston win early in the season, but on the road, they're going to score more than one on the road. It's going to be at Pride Park. I said it was going to be at Preston. It didn't happen. It's going to happen at Pride Park. I'm going to go 2-0 to Luton Town in this game. It'll be really squeaky bum time. But Derby, speaking of teams down there with Derby, it is Rotherham. They're away at Millwall. Cody, crucial win for them, considering teams around them picked up points as well.
Yeah, and actually, probably this game being away from home suits them down to the ground based on their last 2 away games. At Sheffield Wednesday and at Bristol City, 2 good performances, look good in front of goal. And that's the one thing you can't really say for Rotherham this year. Of all the teams down there, in the bottom 6 looking at it, they've scored by far the most goals out of those sides. And that's normally the thing that you look out for in a relegation candidate. So with a better goal difference, with the games in hand, and after a 2-week break, I just can't see past Rotherham. They've got so much to play for. Millwall are, like Luton, one of those mid-table sides that aren't going to go up or down this year. So Rotherham, for me, have to win this. It's crucial to them, and they're going to nick it by 2-1 on the road.
Charlie?
Yeah, I've got not much to add. I agree. In terms of, I think in a few weeks' time, we'll have a different conversation about Rotherham. I'm not, I know Dan's mentioned this before the international break about the fixture congestion potentially for them. But yeah, straight after this international break, surely. Millwall are such a hard team to predict at the minute. They really are, and they're not fluent in front of goal, despite winning 1-0 in the last couple of games. I mean, as I say, 2 games ago, 2 shots, 1 goal. So do you know what I mean? How do you predict them off the back of that? So on that basis, I still think Rotherham will be too much. I can't see where the goal from Millwall's coming from. 2-0 Rotherham.
I'm torn this one because I don't think Rotherham will pick up a point. But I think they'll pick up a point, to be honest. I don't think they'll get all 3. So I think this will be a tough game for Rotherham. I really do. I do want them to survive. They've got the games in hand. They've obviously got to win them, but I don't think this will be on. I'm going to go for Championship favourite scoreline of 1-1. Up next, it's managerless Preston versus Norwich City. Oh, this is a tough start for the new caretaker manager, Charlie.
It is. When we talk about new manager bounces, you'd need one hell of a bounce. I mean, at the time of recording, we genuinely, it's one of the few where we've got to the stage and genuinely have no idea who it's going to be. I think normally we have a slight indication or at least a feeling that when we're recording this, no idea. I just think Norwich, even with the international break and maybe a little bit of a loss of momentum because they haven't played for a couple of weeks, lads on international duty, etc., I still think it'll be far too strong. I don't think it'll be as convincing as before the international break, so I'm going to go for 2-0 Norwich City.
We'll go for a convincing win from Norwich City. Preston, watching the highlights against Luton, they just didn't. It just looked so toothless. I don't know, Cody, you watched the game, but they just looked really toothless. They didn't create anything. They didn't start to create anything once they went 1-0 down. And the result of the last game was the right result, to be honest. People might say, oh, we should have drawn that. It was Luton. Luton had the chances. Could have easily wrapped the game up after 1-0. But yeah, it's Norwich, and Norwich are obviously flying. Obviously picked up a point last game. I think they'll be disappointed from that. So they easily want to bounce back and get the job done, get promotion in and wrap up the title. And they'll easily do it in this game. I'm going to go 3-1. I think Preston will just need 1. Don't know why. Cody.
Well, you said that we're all going to go for a comfortable Norwich win. Well, we're not. I can tell you that to start with, because I don't know. I've got a sneaky suspicion that Norwich game was the first time there was a little bit of a warning sign. I mean, don't get me wrong. They're going to go up. They're 14 points clear. And the teams in 3rd and 4th have been dropping like stones as well. But there were some warning signs. And I think Preston, with a new caretaker, obviously, will get a result out of this game. They'll probably only be in form for 1 game, but I think they're going to sneak a draw. So I'm going to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline. But by Friday, when this game happens, because we're recording nearly a week in advance, I'll be shocked if there hasn't been an announcement about which manager will be joining in the summer. But I'm happy to be proven wrong.
All right, next up, it is Queen's Park Rangers versus Coventry. Cody, Coventry creeping down. Is this the sort of game they probably wanted?
Well, you could argue so. QPR probably better team to face at their place rather than away from home, because QPR on the road are a stronger side generally in recent months. Coventry, though, the goals have dried up. And I don't want to sound like a broken record. I got slated for this at the start of the season. But even some of the Coventry fans in the comments recently have been sort of alluding to it. At Luton, they could have had a great chance. They didn't take them. Biamu, I can't tell you how many great chances he wasted against Wycombe. And when your striker's out of form like that, we've seen it at Forest, it doesn't matter how good the rest of the components are. If you haven't got a centre forward who can finish or isn't in form, it's always going to be difficult. And again, they've played 3 games more than Rotherham. They're only 4 points clear. They've got a worse goal difference. They've got to find a way to win. And that means they have to keep a clean sheet. But I don't think they're going to, because Charlie Austin's going to score. So I think Coventry will get a result, possibly. No, 1-0 QPR, but it's going to be so tight, and it could be any score under 2 goals.
Charlie?
Yeah, I largely agree with Dan. The thing is QPR are exactly the same. I won't go over the whole spiel again about maybe teams like Luton Town who can't go up, can't go down. Just sort of, and if any team's going to do that and sort of not throw the towel in, it probably is QPR. They just, I don't know, don't seem to have that bit between their teeth in those sort of situations. And you know, home record: win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. Last 5 games: win, win, loss, draw. Win. It's just all over the shop, really. So I can't believe I'm saying this. I think Coventry might sneak one. And I'm going for this again. I like Dan just said, where the goals are going to come from, I don't know. Possibly an own goal, something like that. 1-0 Coventry City, backs against the wall job, might pull them out of safety a little bit. Pull them away safe, sorry.
Totally disagree. Well, only bit I'm going to agree on is Coventry are going to score, because QPR do tend to concede goals. Obviously 3-2 to Millwall. Obviously, they came back from 2-0 down, granted that, but obviously they still went 2-0 down early. I do think Coventry will score, as you said. I don't know how, but they're going to do it. But I think QPR will have enough to beat Coventry. I just feel like Coventry, I don't know what they can do differently, apart from obviously score goals, to change it around. It's weird, because they're just on that slope and I can't see them pulling back up. So I'm going to go QPR, to go and win 2-1. Up next, Vicarage Road, Watford versus Sheffield Wednesday. Cody, Sheffield Wednesday, just like Rotherham, picked up 3 crucial points last game.
Yeah, what they'll be really annoyed about is the fact they didn't beat Huddersfield the game before, because they'd be right in the mix otherwise already. If Darren Moore's going to get the bounce, it has to be now, because considering the fact that they've played the same number of games as most of the sides above them, you can't get further than 6 or 7 points away. But let's be honest, Luton and Barnsley were both here last year, and they both stayed up. So let's not write them off just yet. The problem they've got is they're coming up against a Watford side who have hit top form at the right time. The Premier League quality is showing. In my book, if they win this game, they've wrapped up second place already, because the other 2 below them are faltering too much. I think Watford are going to win it. The goals are going in for fun. Bar the Forest game, they've scored 2 in every one. And Sheffield Wednesday aren't the best at the back, as we saw against Luton. So I'm going to go for 2-0 to Watford, because I don't think they'll concede, and I think they'll win comfortably.
Yeah, I think they're going to win comfortably as well, to be honest. And yeah, as you just rightly pointed out, Watford's hit the right form at the right time. 5 straight wins in the last 5 games. They're winning games when they should be winning games. So it's a mark of a good team, and it's probably a bad thing for Sheffield Wednesday, to be honest, because it's the sort of team they don't really want to face. But I think they'll be convincing. I'm going to go 3-0 Watford. Charlie?
Yeah, do you know what? I feel for Darren Moore in the sense that he's not really had the luck. They get a win, then he has 2 weeks off. And actually, in that situation, you probably want the momentum to carry, off the back of that. So, I mean, Watford are far too strong. The only thing I think might happen, and just because it's the Championship does throw up this every now and then, Sheffield Wednesday take an early lead and then Watford come out. So I just think that there'll be a bit of hope. Like Dan said, though, that, Wednesday lose this. It's an awful game to have. I really want Darren Moore. I'd love him to keep him up. I think the luck and the run isn't really going for him. An international break and then Watford, you couldn't have asked for a much worse sort of bounce off of that. So I have to go for a Watford win. But I think Wednesday might get the first one. Everyone gets a little bit excited, but then I think Watford will come through. So on that basis, I'm going to go for 3-1 Watford, because I think when it's 2-1 Wednesday, will throw them forward and let another one in. 3-1.
Up next, Adams Park, it is Wycombe Wanderers versus Blackburn Rovers. Charlie, Blackburn, they've had a really poor 2021, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. I mean, I don't know. This is exactly what we were saying before about teams that haven't got much to play for. I think they're too fast gone to be to be flirting with to be worried about relegation. I mean, Wycombe, I don't know. They got win, loss, draw in the last 3. Is this the one where they're sharp? I think it has to be. I think Blackburn I don't think they have anything to play for. I don't think they have any enthusiasm. I do worry about Tony Mowbray. I don't see him being there early on. I think it might be the first part of next season. I think it'll be gone. I don't think there's any inspiration there with Blackburn. It's a bit of a stale sort of situation for him. Gareth Ainsworth has now maybe got to prove himself for a potential job at Preston, depending on what's happening there. So I think this might be a good swan song for him to go out on. So I'm going to go for a Wycombe win against all the odds of 2-0.
Hey.
Yeah, like Charlie says, I think Gareth Ainsworth will probably be announced ahead of the summer for the Preston North End job, to be honest. A former player there, obviously. But for Wycombe, I think it's probably a little too much now. And even I'll admit it as the man that predicted them to stay up this year. It's just gone too far. They had to win that Coventry game when they had a great late chance after being beaten for most of it. Blackburn, though, after ending the rot, it's largely been draw specialists. And the goals have dried up again. I know they've lost a bit of the attacking talent due injuries and other reasons, but they're not scoring goals. Wycombe aren't the highest or the most fluent goal scorers themselves. I think it's the second one I've gone for today, but I'm going to go for a goalless draw because I don't see much inspiration in this one.
I'm going to go with a Wycombe win. I don't think there'll be many goals in this game. I'm going to go for 1-0. Up next at Oakwell, massive game in the playoff race. It is Barnsley versus Reading. Charlie, Barnsley, that brilliant run they had, lost in a Yorkshire derby to Sheffield Wednesday. Reading, on the other hand, 2 points behind them, same games. How do you see this one panning?
Goals.
Excellent. 6-6 then.
Well, not far off. No, I just don't think either team are fussed about defending. I think if you're going to pick a game to watch, I think this is the one from that day's fixtures. Reading have been quite erratic. Barnsley were in great form. I mean, it was going to come to an end. Did I think it was going to be Sheffield Wednesday? Probably not, no. But now that pressure's off a little bit almost, the fact that they did lose that, I think they might be right, actually. So on that basis, I think Barnsley have just been a bit too strong recently. That was a little blip against Wednesday. So I'm going for a 7-goal filler, 4-3, Barnsley.
Cody?
Not quite as much as that for me, but I've got to be honest. It's funny with Barnsley, isn't it? It's funny how the pressure changes when you get into the top 6. We said this about Swansea and Brentford when they were getting towards the top 2. It's funny how the pressure changes when you're in that situation. Reading are a side that have been there all season, but are at very big risk of dropping out. And actually, it's not in their hands anymore, with Bournemouth having a better goal difference. So I'm not sure that either side is going to be at their best here. What I would say is that Barnsley don't often keep clean sheets. They've got the worst goals conceded rate in the top 10 in the Championship, and I think that's going to continue. So like Charlie, they'll concede a couple, but I think it will just be a point for them. 2 apiece I'm going for. Game of the weekend.
I'm also going to go for a draw, a score draw. I think you say Barnsley concede. I think it'll be a lot tighter than you think. I think it's not going to be spectacular because both teams will be put under pressure and they don't want to mess up. So I'm going to go for 1-1, but there'll be the odd goal. Probably 2 set pieces. Next up, it is Birmingham City versus Swansea. It's the first of the final 2 of a relegation threatened team against a team vying for the top 2. Cody, Swansea, how much of a blow that is to lose, not only to lose in the playoff or the promotion hunt, but to lose your local rivals.
Yeah, and when they really needed to bounce back after the Bournemouth defeat in midweek, which was probably even worse, to be honest, to not get any sort of reaction in that sense was probably quite disappointing. And to go back to what you were saying at the start of this introduction to this fixture, I actually think they've blown the top 2 chance with those 2 fixtures. Birmingham at home, a good first game under Bowyer at home, but then I don't know where to go with Birmingham. They've still got an awful home record over the season, but if they're going to win games, they have to target the home matches at the moment. I think they're going to win it, you know. I can't see Swansea's poor run ending. It's a bad run at the wrong time. They've not really had an extended one all season. And the fact they haven't scored in the last 2 games either, 1-0 Birmingham, I think it's going to be a really cagey game. Not one for the TV, which I think it's been picked for.
I think Swansea will bounce back. I think they need to get more than 1 goal because I'm just looking at the top 6 in goals scored. They are way behind team, obviously, your Norwich, Watford, and Brentford. Brentford on 65, Swansea on 45. It's very low, but obviously they don't concede that many. But Swansea will bounce back. Birmingham, mixed up, though, shall I say. Obviously, 1 win, 1 loss, was Watford, obviously, up there. Another tough one for Birmingham as well. They don't need teams up around them in the top 6 at the moment. Swansea will bounce back 2-0. Charlie.
I'll get it straight out of the way. 0-0. Both teams are going to cancel each other out. Swansea plus 12 goal difference at home, only plus 4 away from home. For me, that speaks volumes for their setup, for the way they approach away games. And I think Lee Bowyer would be foolish to try and out-punch a team like Swansea in the sense of trying to out-attack them. So I can just see both teams almost sitting off and playing for a draw. And I think, like you said about it maybe not being the best spectacle for TV. So I think both teams are cancelling each other out. I just can't see where the goals are going to come from for both teams. 0-0.
And the final game is on Saturday. It is Huddersfield Town versus Brentford. Charlie, Huddersfield had the break. Brentford drawn the last 2. Do you still see it being an away victory? Because obviously they're going to be the favourites for this game.
I don't know. I mean, Huddersfield are not in, I say they're not in great form, but then you look at their home form, they obviously beat Swansea 4-1, but then they lost to Wycombe before that. They also drew with Birmingham, which at the time was not a great result. But then they drew with Cardiff. So, do you know what I mean? I don't know where you go with this. Brentford, albeit are obviously, cracking side, but away from home haven't been as good. They lost 3 out of the last 5. Admittedly, they won. They beat Blackburn and then drew with Derby. So, I don't know where to go with it. This is not as straightforward as I think it is. I think Brentford will still have too much. I think the break will do them good. But I don't see it being convincing. I think that both teams' home and away form speaks for that. So, I have to go for a 1-0 Brentford win.
Cody.
Yeah, I mean, in normal circumstances, I'd be a bit worried if I was Huddersfield drawing most of their games. But the fact they're unbeaten in 4, no matter how cagey and how many draws are in there, is so crucial for them, the position they were in. They were right in a relegation scrap. And those 3 points from the draws have just edged them away slightly. Bonus with the 1-0 win at QPR, which made a massive difference. At home, they've generally been quite good this season, so I can still see them getting a decent result. Brentford, same to Swansea. They've just picked the wrong time to hit poor form. They're still the top scorers in the league. They very rarely don't score. Only the Norwich game, I think, in the last 6. So Ivan Toney will get his regular goal, but I think it's going to be a draw again. 1-1.
I'm going to go inside with Charlie on a Brentford win, to be honest. Yeah, I think this will be more convincing than you guys would think. I think obviously Tony's obviously on fire. I think if they get the early goal with Brentford, I think they can destroy Huddersfield. But Brentford got to learn it. Obviously, they scored early last time away from home, obviously the derby, and they didn't pick up 3 points. They blew their lead. So I think hopefully they'll learn their lessons from that. I'm going to go for a Brentford 3-1 win. And let's have a quick recap of what we just predicted on. I've gone 4-1-1. Championship favourite scoreline is back for me. Charlie's going for a while. Barnsley 4, Reading 3. And Cody has got a couple of 0-0 draws. And those are our predictions for Good Friday. Do you agree with us or do you disagree with us? Let us know in the comment section down there. And while you're down there, give us your predictions. Don't forget, while you're down there, like this video, subscribe to the Honest Football Podcast, and you can follow us on Twitter at HonestFootball3. And we'll see you next time.